Hello everyone. So my name is Aya Hajj and I'm one of Lamsa's ambassador, and today for our Wednesday webinar I'm going to talk about autism spectrum disorder. So I'm just going to start with some words from a mother with her child's diagnosed with autism. So she starts, watching her grow up, we all knew my sister was just a little bit different. She doesn't like hugs, she hates clothes that are anything but loose, and the littlest of things can stress her out to the point of crying. Later, we found out my little sister had a mix of anxiety, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and some Asperger's tendencies. She has been teased and made fun of. Her dad tries forcing her out of it and only causes more problems. Some people don't seem to understand this is not a condition to grow out of, and forcing change will only work to exacerbate her challenges. As you may have just heard, there is still a stigma attached to mental health disease like autism spectrum disorder. So our job at Lamsa is to try and break that stigma, and we're going to start with this presentation to kickstart this raise of awareness around autism. So the content. So this is just an overview of what we're going to touch today. So autism spectrum disorder is a development disability that causes significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. And there is often nothing about how people with ASD look that sets them apart from other people. But people with ASD may communicate, interact, and behave and learn in ways that are very different from most other people. The learning, thinking, and problem solving abilities of people with ASD can range from gifted to severely challenged. And some people with ASD need a lot of help in their daily lives, others need less. So, a diagnosis of ASD now includes several conditions that used to be diagnosed separately. So, autistic disorder, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, and Asperger's syndrome. So, these conditions are now all called autism spectrum disorder. So ASD occurs in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups, but is about 4 times more common among boys than among girls. And for over a decade, CDC's Autism and Developmental Disability Monitoring Network has been estimating the number of children with ASD in the United States. And we have learned a lot about how many US children have ASD. It will be important to use the same methods to track how the number of children with ASD is changing over time in order to learn more about the disorder. So what are the signs and symptoms? So people with ASD often have problems with social, emotional, and communication skills, and they might repeat certain behaviors and not want to change uh, their behaviors in their daily activities. So many people with ASD also have different way of learning, paying attention, or reacting to things. And signs of ASD begin during early childhood and typically last throughout a person's life. So children or adults with ASD might, for example, not point at objects to show interest, not look at objects when another person points at them, have trouble relating to others, or not have an interest in other people at all, avoid eye contact and want to be alone, and have trouble understanding other people's feeling or talking about their own feelings. They prefer not to be held or cuddled or might cuddle only when they want to, and they appear to be unaware when people talk to them but respond to other sounds. They may be very interested in people but do not know how to talk, play, or relate to them. They might repeat or echo words or phrases said to them, or repeat words or phrases in place of normal language. They might also have trouble expressing their needs using typical words or motion, and they do not play pretend games. For example, they do not pretend to feed a doll or, you know, and they also repeat actions over and over again. They have trouble adapting when a routine changes. They have unusual reactions to the way things smell, taste, look, feel, or sounds. And they also lose the skills they once had. For example, that they stop saying words that they were using before. So all of these are symptoms of autism, but you may, of course, not experience all of them, or you might experience some of them, and but all of them like groups into like a more social problems and how to interact socially. So what is the diagnosis? So diagnosing ASD can be very difficult since there is no medical test, like a blood test, to diagnose the disorder. So doctors look at the child's behavior and development to make a diagnosis, and ASD can sometimes be detected at 18 months or younger. But by age 2, a diagnosis by an external professional can be considered very reliable. However, many children do not receive a final diagnosis until much older, and this delay means that children with ASD might not get the early help they need. So as children with ASD becomes adolescent and young adults, they might have difficulties developing and maintaining friendships, communicating with peers and adults, or understanding what behaviors are expected in school or on the job. So they may also come to the attention of healthcare providers because they have co-occurring conditions such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, or even depression. So monitoring, screening, evaluating, and diagnosing children with ASD as early as possible is very important to make sure children receive the service and support they need to reach their full potential. So what are the causes and risk factors? So of course, genetic factors may play an important role, but what we do not know and what we're still debating, but we're getting promising results about, is that environmental factors are a cause to autism. So they may play a role in increasing the risk of autism. So with urbanization and industrialization, we are exposed to chemical pollutants in air, water, soil, and therefore even the food we eat. So with advance of technology, we are exposed to more and more electromagnetic radiations. And these factors are presumed to contribute to increased risk of autism. I'm going to go into much further details about this in the next few slides. But we do not know all the cause of ASD. However, we have learned that there are likely multiple types of ASD. There may be many different factors that make a child more likely to have ASD, including also biologic and genetic factors. And most scientists agree that genes are one of the risk factors that can make a person more likely to develop ASD. Children who have a sibling with ASD are at a higher risk of also having ASD, and individuals with certain genetic or chromosomal conditions such as Fragile X syndrome or tuberous sclerosis can have a greater chance of having ASD. Also, when taken during pregnancy, the prescription drug valproic acid and thalidomide have linked with a higher risk of ASD. And there is some evidence that the critical period for developing ASD occurs during and immediately after birth. So children born to older parents are also at a greater risk for having ASD. So we previously talked about the environmental factors. So one great factors that affect and is a major cause of autism is electromagnetic radiation. So we've all heard that electromagnetic radiation from electronic device used to affect brain function. So to get down to the technicality of the statement, electromagnetic radiation can alter the biological electric activity of the brain, thus increasing blood-brain barrier permeability and inducing epigenetic modification. And this can therefore potentially alter damaged brain cells and thus affect the brain development. So wireless radiations, especially emitted from the gadgets we regularly use, such as cell phones, laptops, can potentially contribute to neuroinflammation. And prolonged or regular exposure to wireless radiation during pregnancy may affect not just the mother, but also the fetus. Children exposed to constant wireless radiation early in the childhood may also experience harmful effect of radiation. So there's also heavy metal toxicity, for example, lead. So lead levels as less than 10 picogram can cause aberrant learning and defective neurobehavior in autism. So high level of lead can cause permanent brain dysfunction and impaired cognition and learning, behavioral disorders, attention deficit, affected communication, and social function. We have also aluminium, which is a neurotoxin and a strong immune adjuvant, and its neurotoxicity could be attributed to its impact of inducing oxidative stress and liberating DNAs, which is significant DNA damage inducer. So how do we treat autism? So there is currently, sadly, no cure for ASD. However, research shows that early intervention treatment service can improve a child's development. So early intervention service help children from birth to 3 to 9 years, uh, to three to from birth to 3 years old, learn important skills. So service can include therapy to help the child talk, walk, and interact with others. Therefore, it is important to talk to your child's doctor as soon as possible if you think your child has ASD or other developmental problem. So even if your child has not been diagnosed with ASD, he or she may be eligible for early intervention treatment services. So, children under the age of 3 years who are at risk of having development delays may be eligible for these services. And these services are provided through an early intervention system in your state or province. And through this system, you can ask for an evaluation. In addition, treatment for particular symptoms such as speech therapy for language delay often does not need to wait for a formal ASD diagnosis. So if you're concerned, if you think your child or a friend might have ASD, or you think there could be a problem with the way your child plays, learns, speaks, or acts, you need to contact your child's doctor and share your concerns. So if you or your doctor is still concerned, ask the doctor for a referral to a specialist who can do a more in-depth evaluation of your child. And specialists who can do a more in-depth evaluation of diagnosis include a development pediatrician, doctors who have special training in child development and children with special needs, child neurologists, so doctors who work on the brain, spine, and nerves, and also child psychologists or psychiatrists, so doctors who know about the human mind. So this is just a summary, takeaway that you can screenshot and save for later and read for later, or keep it in your files for a reminder of what is autism. So help us raise awareness and break the stigma together. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm open to any questions if you guys might have, and thank you